Hello and welcome, I'm Martine Croxall. Leaders from across Europe, including the EU and NATO chiefs, say they'll join Volodymyr Zelensky in Washington on Monday for talks on ending the war in Ukraine with Donald Trump. The US president posted on his social media site, Truth Social, big progress on Russia. Stay tuned. Well, the Ukrainian president is in Brussels attending a virtual meeting with France, Germany and Britain ahead of those US talks. And in the last couple of hours, Mr Zelensky held a press conference with Ursula von der Leyen, the European Commission President. Mr Zelensky hailed calls for security guarantees for Ukraine, but said plans lacked details.
It's necessary to cease fire and work quickly on a final deal. We'll talk about it in Washington. Putin does not want to stop the killing, but he must do it. Second, we need real negotiations, which means they can start where the front line is now. The contact line is the best line for talking, and Europeans support this. And we thank everyone. Russia is still unsuccessful in Donetsk region. Putin has been unable to take it for 12 years, and the constitution of Ukraine makes it impossible to give up territory or trade land. Since the territorial issue is so important, it should be discussed only by the leaders of Ukraine and Russia at the trilateral Ukraine, United States, Russia. So far, Russia gives no sign that trilateral will happen, and if Russia refuses, then new sanctions must follow. Third, it's important that America agrees to work with Europe to provide security guarantees for Ukraine, and we are very thankful to the United States and to the President for such signal, and therefore for everyone in Europe. This is a significant change, but there are no details how it will work and what America's role will be, what Europe's role will be, what the EU can do.
The US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff says Vladimir Putin has agreed to the US providing Ukraine with robust security guarantees akin to NATO's Article 5 as part of any peace deal. Well, that's the agreement that states that an armed attack on a NATO country would be considered an attack on all members. The European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen says Europe is ready to step up.
We welcome President Trump's willingness to contribute to Article 5-like security guarantees for Ukraine. And the coalition of the willing, including the European Union, is ready to do its share. We know that the work of defending Europe is first and foremost our responsibility. And we've been working hard to speed up and scale up as we increase Europe's defense capability. Through the SAFE instrument, we are ensuring that the defense needs of member states and Ukraine can be matched.
Ursula von der Leyen. Well, Vladimir Putin has been in touch with his closest allies, holding calls with the presidents of Kazakhstan and Belarus. The Kazakh president told Mr Putin that the Alaska summit was a turning point in bolstering Russia's international standing and has improved the Americans' understanding of Russia's stance on Ukraine. Well, our North America correspondent Ursula Mukherjee has been telling us about Washington's reaction to the upcoming visit of so many European leaders.
So far, there hasn't been any official communication on what the White House's line of thinking is ever since we've started getting those flurry of announcements of various European leaders arriving here in Washington, D.C. on Monday. So it is still very unclear how exactly is this going to take shape. Is there going to be any kind of structure, or are there going to be any kind of expanded talks? But that's something that there has been no confirmation or even an indication about. Is this still likely to be a bilateral meeting with the European leaders sort of being present outside of it? That's all very unclear. So at the moment, it's all speculation until we get some sort of an official line coming in from the White House. We haven't been hearing from Donald Trump, apart from a few posts that he put out on Truth Social. The last one was, quite interesting, where he said, expect some sort of an announcement very soon. Stay tuned, he said. This is regarding Russia. We haven't heard anything after that, but remains to be seen what exactly that might amount to as well.
But so many people who have a stake in these talks will not want to see a repeat of what happened in February with that very tense angry exchange between Presidents Trump and Zelensky.
Precisely why you're seeing this kind of show of support. You know, if we just go back, we saw this massive show of unity even before President Trump met President Putin in Alaska. We saw that week leading up to that summit, you saw a lot of meetings. Again, the message was very clear that this meeting between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin may not be involving Ukraine or having a representation from Ukraine or Europe, but Europe stands with Ukraine. That was the message going into that meeting. After that meeting, when there have been some concerns about how the meeting would have gone, you're seeing this happening again before a very crucial meeting between Vladimir Zelensky and Donald Trump. I think the pressure is now even more for Europe to put on, on the situation to suggest that, look, Europe still stands very strongly with Ukraine. If there are any sort of, possible areas where there are worries about concessions that could be made. Remember, there have been talk of, swapping of land, of territory, which is what had raised some, concerns within European quarters about what that could essentially mean, which is why you're constantly seeing Vladimir Zelensky reiterate that, look, this is absolutely impossible. Any kind of negotiation on sovereignty is absolutely impossible. So those are clear red lines, and I think they're highlighting and amplifying those red lines ahead of what is likely to be a very, very critical meeting. There have been some concerns among European diplomats that if this was to be a meeting just between Donald Trump and Vladimir Zelensky, of course, memories of that last meeting at the Oval Office are very, very fresh. If there was to be a situation where possibly an environment in which Donald Trump continues to put a little more pressure, then that would have raised concerns. And if I could just reflect on that interview that Donald Trump gave to Fox News after his meeting in Alaska, he said, I would urge Vladimir Zelensky to make a deal. He's fighting against a powerful Russian war machine. I would urge him to make a deal. So I think in the context of all of that, the European leaders are showing unity, are showing support for Ukraine ahead of those conversations to ensure that, look, Ukraine is not going to be alone, and these are the red lines, the non-negotiables that cannot be crossed.